So I see that Black Lives Matter has gotten a lot of attention even here in Asia across the Pacific. And you might think that's strange because black and white people aren't that common around here, but I think that's a good thing, like a really good thing, because Asians can actually be pretty racist. Over here, it usually takes the form of harmless ignorance, which is not so harmless when we actually start meeting people. So I think anti-racism matters here too, because this kind of stuff survives when nobody says anything about it. For me, the earliest example was in grade school. I was a big fan of jokes from the internet, and there was one particular website I liked browsing a lot. That website had a section dedicated completely to black jokes. And I didn't really get it. There were so many jokes about stealing or shooting or kidnapping or killing, murder, that kind of stuff. And yeah, I didn't get it at the time. And kids, they'll listen to pretty much anything. I mean, I used to love the Harry Potter movies, and I just never considered that maybe Daniel Radcliffe looked different from me. And for reasons that weren't just the fact that people just generally look different from each other. Like, the concept of race did not exist to me at the time. So I was really confused about what a black person was. And I remember asking people like, oh, what's a black person? You know, why are there so many jokes about them like this? And I remember being told that they're poor and they steal because they're criminals, they do all these kinds of things. At first, I didn't believe it, but there were so many people joking about it, and it just seemed that lots of people thought this way. So I started considering, what if it was true? So I remember trying them out, and people were laughing at them. And the thing about jokes like that is that they aren't funny unless you agree with them. I wonder now, when people say that everyone was less politically correct back then and you could make any kind of jokes you wanted, we can't take a joke nowadays, if that's actually true, that we became hypersensitive to jokes like these and became focused on political correctness, or if it was simply because people legitimately agreed with these sentiments back then. And now that racism is getting less common, people just aren't willing to let it slide anymore. I'm leaning more towards the latter idea. I mean, if there's any place at all for jokes like ching chang chong, it should be something like height or weight, where you're teasing a friend you're close with while knowing they're okay with it. But in other contexts, nope. So now we have people that are actually talking about these things. We have people in Asia who care about groups beyond those that they encounter in their everyday lives. And see, without that, these sentiments, they just spread and they just stay in the air. They could slowly, subconsciously just become part of how you think, and people can just accept it. It doesn't help also that Asian culture is pretty colorist in general. We're slanted against dark skin because light skin is a beauty ideal here in Asia, and the association is that dark skin equals poor and light skin equals rich. So it's not just black people, but also darker Middle Eastern, Southeast Asian people who get that end of the stick too. So these attitudes develop, and for the most part, these strangers just become urban legends. I mean, you've probably never seen a person like this before, and your friends and family have never seen one either. So all you knew was just what you heard about them and whatever other people told you. And it didn't really matter what you believed because there were basically no consequences to it. I mean, it was such a non-issue here that even once I overheard someone saying like, oh, Rihanna, yeah, I love Rihanna, she's a really great singer. And in the back of your head, you're thinking, wait a second, you can't say that. Isn't that offensive? But the thing is, it wasn't offensive here. That was because here, black people just didn't exist. They were no more real than unicorns or wizards. It feels like it's okay to think that way and to say things like that because nobody really gets affected by it. Over here, your actions don't matter because nobody's here to be offended. But the burning question is, what happens when you actually meet a stranger? Can you separate the jokes and stereotypes from reality? Maybe you end up treating them a little differently. So I guess it probably wasn't harmless after all. For reasonable people, their opinion changes when they meet an actual real person and realize that stereotypes are not really true. And at the end of the day, we're all just individual people with their own personalities and histories. It's actually a lot easier now with the internet too, because now we can interact with people outside of our culture a lot easier, and that diminishes the fear of the unknown by a lot. But for some people, they find reasons to confirm these negative stereotypes and just bury themselves in that worldview. And by then, the damage has already been done. That's one more racist in the world, and clearly, there are consequences, even if they are indirect ones. So it should be clear now why anti-racism is so important. Staying quiet and not being racist yourself has kind of been the default position for a long time, I guess. And the problem with that is that if no one speaks out against racism, the stereotypes, these cultural ideals, then they just stay. They just continue to exist. And people might believe them, and they let these thoughts stay. And they fester until these people become monsters, way worse than whatever minority they're trying to paint as evil. So let's all play our part in making the world a better place. Thanks for watching and hearing me out. Racism is something that sucks for everyone. You know, black, white, yellow, brown, it doesn't matter. It never feels good to be judged for something as petty as skin tone. And it's completely illogical for the judger. Hey, I hate you because you're the wrong color. Do tell me in the comments below about your own stories, and maybe like and subscribe if you want to hear me talk again. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'm happy to see the whole world taking a stand.